Good morning and welcome. It's great to see everyone. We had stalled for about 30 seconds or so to give a few other people an opportunity to join in this morning's virtual discussion about the first week of the legislative session. My name is Steve Roberts. I'm here at the West Virginia Chamber. Seated to my right is Brian Dayton, who leads the Chamber's lobbying efforts at the West Virginia Capitol. Next to Brian is Kaylin George, also a registered lobbyist, and Kaylin leads communications, but she's also very involved in government affairs and legislative activities at the Capitol. Next to Kaylin is Andrea Garrett. Andrea is a registered lobbyist for the West Virginia Chamber and is assisting with the Chamber business community agenda at the legislature. To my left is Elizabeth House, who leads the West Virginia Chamber Foundation and Jobs for West Virginia's graduates. And seated next to Elizabeth is Caitlin Pitlack-Mora, who provides legal counsel to the West Virginia Chamber. So good morning, welcome. Thank you for joining us. As you're probably aware, on Wednesday of this week, Governor Justice gave his final State of the State address. He spent approximately an hour and a half reviewing the work of the last approximately 7 years since he became governor. He talked a lot about the changes in the state's finances. Many viewers may remember that when Governor Justice came into office, he had a number of tax increases on his mind because he was concerned about the future revenue collection in West Virginia. And he talked about how things had changed and that there have been tax cuts and still budget surpluses. So that was where he spent a lot of his time and effort. He also talked about 3 tax cut initiatives. He made reference to removing Social Security income from state taxes. He wants to expand or initiate and expand a tax credit for child care, which the Chamber thinks is really a topic that needs a lot of discussion, and that we need to do everything we can to improve and increase people's opportunities to have child care. We think this would be good for people, good for families, good for children, and good for helping get people into the workforce. And the governor also made reference to the possibility of expanding our senior citizen tax deduction on real estate, occupied real estate. So that's the homestead tax exemption. So that's an overview of the agenda that the governor laid out. The West Virginia Chamber has been in very regular contact with legislative leaders to see what they are thinking. They are aware of what we're thinking. And we're going to talk about those things for several minutes this morning. If you're wondering how long is this going to go on, our thought is that we have several minutes of overview, but what we really want is comments, questions from you. So be thinking about your comments and questions, and we'll be getting to those just as quickly as we can. With that, I am going to look to my right and see if Brian Dayton would also introduce some of the topics that you're probably thinking about and that legislators are working on. So with that, thank you very much for joining us. And Brian, we're looking forward to hearing from you.
So we're now in day 3 of the 2024 session. It has been interesting thus far in that this is one of the quieter sessions, or at least quieter launches to a legislative session in some time. And I think a lot of that is due to this is a very competitive election year coming up. And really, for the first time, with some exception to 2022, the elections that matter are all going to be in May rather than November. So I think you have a lot of legislators very conscious that they're heading to the polls in just 4 months right now. So that is going to shape some of the flavor of the West Virginia legislature. As Steve mentioned, the governor introduced his budget on Wednesday evening, and it contained a decent amount of new spending in there. There certainly is support for that in the legislature. However, we've also been hearing from other key legislative leaders that are a little more skeptical on his proposals. So The budget is going to be hashed out extensively in the Senate Finance Committee, in the House Finance Committee, and then they will have to reconcile between the two. So that is going to be interesting to see what the legislature decides to do with the budget moving forward. There is talk of a potential teacher pay raise. It's been a couple of years now since there's been a teacher pay raise, but we do continue to still rank near the bottom in teacher pay. And we're dealing with, it's about, I'm looking to Elizabeth now, about 2,000 vacancies across the state in teaching positions. So that is one of the things they are looking at. Obviously, the question is always, how do you pay for it? But that is something that we continue to hear. Unemployment compensation reform has passed the state Senate for 2 years in a row now and gotten hung up in the House. We do expect the bill will pass the Senate again. But there's also potentially a little more support in the House as they're able to dive down and look more at a county level and maybe customize it on a county by county basis. From a chamber standpoint, going back to 2008, before the triggers were put in place, is important. We have over $400 million in the unemployment compensation fund right now, which is about, Steve, you've tracked it, about the healthiest level we've ever seen it. So removing those triggers that can automatically provide a tax increase to employers and taking it back to where the legislature would have to proactively do that is important. And we do hear that that is likely to be a component of the bill moving forward. Education last year, the Third Grade Success Act was passed. We're still seeing that law just being implemented right now. So we are optimistic about its opportunities to improve public education in West Virginia. There's a good bit of discussion right now to look at how to deal with disruptive students. One thing we all know is that there are disruptive students in the classroom. It interrupts learning for everybody. It breaks up the teacher's concentration, their ability to teach. They have to deal with that. So we are expecting a look at how to deal with disruptive students in classes so that the rest of the students can continue to learn. We don't exactly know what that's going to look like just yet, but it is getting a lot of talk. I want to move in now to childcare. That is something that we continue hearing from our members. They can't find employees right now, and a big reason is the lack of affordable and available quality childcare in West Virginia. 5 years ago, if you went over and talked about childcare at the legislature, they kind of looked at you and said, "What's going on?" The conversation now is they are looking at this as just as important as infrastructure, just as important as broadband across the entire state. So we have really shifted the conversation on that, and there is a lot of movement in that realm. The Speaker of the House has appointed a task force. He has given that task force committee staff, attorneys, to go forward and look at childcare. So we are working with a coalition. We are working very closely with that task force to look at all options. The chamber has 2 bills specifically. There are other bills that we are supporting as well. But let me just paint the picture for you. The average cost of childcare in West Virginia is about $800 per child per month. And that's the average. It can be higher for younger children, maybe a little bit lower for children that are a little bit older, close to 3 or 4 years old. However, that being said, one of the staff members who's working on that working group told us yesterday she's paying $1,300 for one child per month. That cost does not even get the child care centers whole. It does not make them whole. They are still operating at a loss even at that cost. So the chamber's bills, we passed a tax credit in 2022 for employers who start daycare facilities. It provides a 50% tax credit on all the costs except land acquisition that's taken over 5 years. One bill we have would expand that credit from 50% to 100%. We also have another bill that is being introduced that instead it's a different tax credit scheme, but it would be a 100% tax credit on the operating costs for employers who choose to operate daycare facilities. We have tremendous support for those. Delegate Bob Fehrenbacher, who's really been a champion, is the lead sponsor in the House. We're still waiting for those bills to come upstairs, but Senator Tom Takuba, the majority leader of the state Senate, is the lead sponsor, and both bills have been introduced. The second one dropped today. So those bills are in the process. We are also very supportive permanently changing the reimbursement rate provided by DHHR to child care centers for subsidized children from attendance to enrollment. Prior to the pandemic, those subsidies were paid by the state to child care facilities based on attendance. So if a child who's receiving subsidy doesn't show up that day, the center doesn't get paid. They still have the staff there. They still have all the overhead, all the costs. They didn't get their money. When the pandemic came into place, they changed that from attendance to enrollment. There is a real threat right now. DHHR is saying that they're going back to attendance in September. So that is a very important part of this, is to leave that based on enrollment, because if that goes back, we do risk losing a lot of the child care centers we have in West Virginia, and we're already critically short. There's also a look to find out, is there more ability to provide direct funding to child care centers so that they can pay their workers more. Child care centers right now, we're hearing from, are losing their employees to go wash dishes at restaurants, because restaurants are paying $16, $17, $18 an hour, and they can't compete with that. They need to be paying at about $20 an hour to be competitive. But in order to do that, the prices they would have to raise would probably go from about that average of $800 a month to $1,500 a month. And at that point, people can't afford it. So there's a lot of looking at this topic, but we're very happy to see the legislature put such a focus on this, and very optimistic that we can make some progress this year. Steve, we can stop there and take questions, or do you want, we can kind of touch on just some of the candidates that are filing in and how important that's going to be.
We do have a question. Maybe we want to take that question and then move to candidate issues, and that will give people time to think about other questions that they may have.
Sure. So the first question we have is, where does the chamber stand on DE&I? What I would say is the West Virginia Chamber has consistently opposed anything that could lead to discrimination in West Virginia. That is something that we are always on guard about. We're constantly looking at that. The good news is we're not hearing anything as of right now that is causing us concern. Now, it is day 3. As I put in the message earlier today, we have 58 days to go. But that is something that we are always on guard. We want to make sure that we are always putting the message forward that we are welcoming and accepting to all in this state. That is a core value of ours, and we believe a core value of most people in this state.
I think Brian covered that topic well. I might just, if I had an opportunity to say one more thing, it might be that I simply would underline and underscore the importance. This is, I'm not surprised that we have gotten a question on this topic. It is a question that we hear from many members within the business community. We very much are aware that equity and inclusiveness are what our members seek and believe in for all sorts of reasons. And we have heard that message loud and clear, and we have delivered that message to legislators. I can't say that there is 100% agreement on the topic within the legislature, but we are very clear that you, our members, feel strongly about this topic. While I'm mentioning this, I will simply say that last year, Kaylin George, sitting to my right, was able to put together a fantastic group of speakers for Black History Month, and we had a series of informational speakers. I learned a lot, and we're looking forward to having an opportunity to do something similar in that regard. We would love to hear from you, our members, about what else would be important to you, so that we can help provide that information. And thank you for the question.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the flavor, if you will, of the legislative session is being shaped by the fact that we are 4 months away from the primary elections. We are closely monitoring candidate filing in West Virginia. It opened on Monday and it closes, I believe it's next Saturday or the Saturday after that, but we have been working really all year last year on identifying and helping to recruit quality individuals to run for seats in the West Virginia legislature. Andrea, to my far right, and I have been meeting we've nonstop throughout the months of October, November, and December. And there's reason to be really, really optimistic. We have some fantastic individuals who decided to step forward and offer themselves to public service. What I would say is if people are not willing to step forward and do these jobs, somebody's going to sign up. And it may not be somebody that we want to sign up. It may not be somebody that is in it for the right reasons. But when we're looking around the state, I just wanted to mention some of the people. Robbie Morris, for example. Robbie Morris is the executive director of the Randolph County Development Authority. He's the chairman of the Broadband Enhancement Council, very, very active in his community. And Robbie is just absolutely fantastic. He is running in one of the most important state Senate races in the state right now and doing just a fantastic job. But he's the type of person that will give you confidence serving in the legislature. Jonathan Board is one of our members at Mon Health. He's general counsel up there in Morgantown. Now his election will probably not be in May, but in November. But somebody who's an attorney, very well respected, had led the Marion County Chamber, is stepping forward. Over in Putnam County, Sarah Drennan is a NICU nurse at Cabell Huntington Hospital. Has 2 young sons in the school system. Very active. Has decided, you know what? I want to do what I can to help make Putnam County a better place. Tom Clark over in Webster County has had a long career in the energy industry, decided to open himself to public service by serving on the Webster County Commission, is now saying, you know what, I'm going to go try to help out in the West Virginia House of Delegates. David McCormick, many of the people on this call know David with Omega Commercial Interiors. He's a very active chamber member. David has decided, you know what, up in Morgantown, an open seat, Debbie Warner is vacating. David said, you know what, we need good people to do these jobs. I'm going to go ahead and offer myself forward. So we're very, very happy with the quality of the individuals, the people who are looking forward to getting into this. We're almost refreshing the list probably hourly to see who has and who hasn't filed. But we've been meeting with these people, talking with them, getting to know them on a personal level, getting to know them or where they would stand on the issues that are important to you and the chamber membership.
Brian, I might just add briefly for the folks on this call to think about the legislature, turns over with more frequency than I think might be commonly known. And it's not unusual to have a 10–15% turnover within the House of Delegates. We have people who serve a certain number of years and decide that they've served long enough. And so we always have open seat races to look at. We see some of the same in the West Virginia State Senate. And so I'm really pleased that so many people from the Chamber's membership this year have agreed to run for the legislature, and we look forward to talking about them more. So I thought that might just be something I hope I'm maybe stimulating somebody who's here with us virtually to think a little bit more about your opportunity for public service.
We have another question, and this is a great question. Does the chamber have a position on municipal B&O tax? Without going too far, because we are looking very carefully at this issue right now to see if there is something we can move forward on. So municipal B&O tax is remarkably complicated. It's remarkably complicated in the way it's collected. It varies by city by city. Different cities have different rates. The sourcing is not clear. So we are looking at ways to address that now. It is about a $250 million revenue stream to the municipalities throughout the state. That funds police, it funds fire, it funds basic city services. So in order to remove the B&O tax, you would have to be able to provide a new revenue source to those communities. And that's not easy. That's very difficult. But we are optimistic that there are maybe some reforms that can be put in place to make it much easier on the business community in the manner in which it's collected and the manner that you would have to take on administrative burdens. And so we are working carefully at it. I really don't want to say too much more at this point. We are working with a number of stakeholders on that, but I would say I'm cautiously optimistic on that topic. But it It's a major issue for many businesses, but it's also a $250 million revenue stream to our communities that they depend on. So that you have to look at it the whole in totality in order to move forward.
If I could add just a word or two on that, this is a top line issue for a number of employers in West Virginia. It's also a top line issue for a number of municipalities in West Virginia. And we are experiencing very good ability to work together with the various stakeholders because it's important to get this right. A lot of work and effort, a lot of legal and accounting talent has gone into crafting this and getting it in the right position and doing the right things. And so we're optimistic that this could be a year where the various parties and various stakeholders are able to come together and come up with some solutions that will ultimately be very good for West Virginia. Do we have other questions? And something that you could give us some feedback on, we have a lot of people on this virtual presentation. Our idea is that it shouldn't take too long. You probably have other things to do, especially on a Friday morning. But we do want to take enough time, and we would like to have your feedback. Is this something that is helpful? Would you like to hear from others of us on the Chamber Government Affairs team? How can we serve you best? So please give us your feedback. We look forward to that. We do have another question, and I may want to make a few more comments about the unemployment compensation issue, but let's see what the question is first. We're going to tee that question up here, and somebody who is not losing his or her voice, I think, is going to take this question. So
the question is, what about childhood immunization exemptions for school? That is something that I would say really since the COVID pandemic has started to pop up, the movement to add a religious exemption or greatly expand the medical exemptions for school immunization laws. West Virginia has some of what I would probably consider the tightest school immunization laws in the country, and we have for a number of years. The movement, when you look at various states, has actually been to move in the direction of West Virginia. However, when the COVID pandemic hit, that has really changed the conversation on this. So there is always the potential that bills could run on that topic. We are watching it very carefully right now to see. But in the past few years, there just has not been the appetite in the legislature to take that up. With it being an election year, I don't know whether that yet. I have not figured out whether that increases the likelihood it's taken up or it decreases the likelihood that it's taken up. But it is something that, like many, many other things, it's a very important topic to our health community, to our healthcare members. And so we're continuing to monitor that right now. And another question was, any broadband legislation expected? There will be legislation on broadband. There always is. However, there's really been a sentiment lately within the legislature among a great many legislators is we've done a lot in that space. We have passed a lot of laws related to broadband, and it may just be time to sit back and let things work and let things continue to expand. There has been a lot of federal grant money that has moved in to help deploy broadband across the state. And so while I expect bills to be introduced, it may see some action. There were last year. I don't know that it ultimately leads to anything passing in totality because there is a lot of sentiment of we've done a lot in that space, and it may just be time to step back and let what we've done actually take effect and work.
I don't see another question in the Q&A, although there may be one that's coming up. So let me, if I may, take just a minute on the unemployment compensation topic. In broad kinds of numbers, Workforce West Virginia estimates that we have as many as 50,000 job openings in West Virginia today. We have approximately half that number of people currently receiving unemployment compensation. So you can do the math, obviously. We have we need workers in West Virginia. We especially need workers who have the right skills, ability, and talents, who are in the right places or who can get to where the jobs are. This is something that we're all working to figure out. But in the meantime, we have record low unemployment in our state, and we have very high tax collections, as has been noted on this conversation previously. But here's the number I want you to focus on for just a minute. The current balance in the Unemployment Compensation Trust Fund is approximately $420 million. Each of those dollars was provided by you, the employers of West Virginia, and that is money that is not in your pocket to reinvest in your business, to hire more people, to purchase more inventory, or do better what you already do well. And the chamber has been involved in this issue for a number of years. We were successful going all the way back to 2009 in negotiating a compromise that kept rates from going up as much as some people wanted them to go up at that time. And at that time, we identified that an unemployment compensation trust fund balance of anything in excess of $150 million meant that the fund was well funded, that it would be unforeseeable that you could have a cataclysmic event that would take so many people out of the workforce all at one time that you would need all $150 million. Well, think of the difference between $150 million and $420 million. So we now have a balance that has grown from approximately 120 to 150 million in 2009 to $420 million today. We think there's lots of room to help employers in this area. We'd like to have your feedback on this, and we'd like to have you saying to your legislators that this is a significant cost to business. It takes significant money out of the coffers of business that business would use for good purposes, and we need to really rethink how we're doing this. I pulled that to an end because we've got another question.
Sure. Another question that's come up is, are there any bills expected on clean energy or energy infrastructure? Let me go back just a couple years to help answer this question. The past few years have seen a lot of activity in this space. In 2022, the legislature repealed the ban on nuclear energy in West Virginia. That ban had been put in place in the late 1980s. And it was very important to repeal that ban because there is a lot of discussion right now, a lot of technology going into the development of small modular nuclear reactors. There are very small units that could power a manufacturing facility or power a small town. We may be 10, 20 years away from that, but the development of those is currently underway. And we wanted to make sure that we have the opportunity to host some of that development in West Virginia. It was one of the more interesting bills to watch because you had bipartisan support for repealing the ban, and you had bipartisan opposition to repealing it. But in all, it was about a 3-to-1 passage in both the House and the Senate. We've also relaxed some of the rules to allow wind and solar development in West Virginia, which has been very important for the businesses that we are looking to attract to this state. Their shareholders, their investors are wanting to see a requirement that, or they are requiring that they get some of their energy from green energy sources. So the legislature has taken the steps to welcome those energy industries in, and they are currently in West Virginia. They are currently building. They are members of the chamber, as are the coal and the natural gas industries. Last year, there was a very important bill that the chamber, the Manufacturers Association, and the Gas and Oil Association all work together to really expedite the permitting for natural gas generation. That was a fight, but we got it through. And we've got a very good bill passed at the end. So I think right now a lot of those things have been done. There's always the guard to make sure that there are not bills that would try to go ahead and undo what has happened. But a lot of that has happened over the past couple of years. I'm not sure that there's going to be any more advancement this year, or if it's similar to broadband. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's done and let some things work.
And another quick note on that topic is very relevant to this particular day and this particular hour, in that we have seen an interruption in global oil supply. There is action occurring in the Straits of Hormuz and in the vicinity of the Suez Canal. Much of the world's oil flows through the Straits of Hormuz and the Suez Canal. Oil prices have jumped somewhat radically overnight. They can be very erratic, as probably many people on this call know. I was around in the 1970s when an oil embargo made West Virginia's coal much more valuable. A few years ago, we saw the outrageous aggression from Russia in its invasion of Ukraine that has completely upended the natural gas supply into Central and Northern Europe, so that we can see that energy issues can change and move very, very quickly. West Virginia is our nation's fifth largest energy supplier. We are a major producer of natural gas, coal. We also have oil, wind, electricity, and hydro. In West Virginia, the Inflation Reduction Act provides a lot of federal support for increasing energy sources. And we in West Virginia, among all of the things that we need to pay attention to and need to be very tuned into, we in West Virginia in particular need to be paying attention to world energy issues. And it's important to note that just today, there has been, because of the military action in the important shipping lanes of the Middle East, there has been a change in world oil supplies that is already affecting pricing. So this will absolutely be something to pay close attention to in our state as one of our nation's largest, most important suppliers, particularly of natural gas and coal for the world's needs. I thought we might get another question or a comment during that short soliloquy. So I'm not seeing another question or comment. I want to see if anybody else here in this room at the West Virginia Chamber of Commerce wants to add anything or say anything or beg for any particular question. I will say again, we very, very much would like to have your input. Is this helpful? Would you like to see us do it again? With what frequency, when, and what duration? And folks, I'm sort of teeing up. If you have something you want to add to the conversation, you've got a little bit of time to do it. Otherwise, we will not keep people longer from their day. We felt when we set out to do this that a half an hour to 40 minutes might be about right. It looks like we're in that sweet spot of currently about that amount of time. So anybody care to add?
Yeah,
Caitlin?
I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining today, and feel free if you have questions after this is over to send it our way to any of the chamber staff. And we do have our legislative reception coming up next week. It's next Thursday from 5 to 6:30. So we would love to see you there and to have your participation. And it looks like we may have another comment in the box.
Additional.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it was a comment, not a question, but it was we'd be happy to provide additional updates. We're going to continue to provide video updates, frequent email updates of what's going on in the legislature, and then we certainly are open to doing these formats as well throughout the session to give an update where we can take direct questions.
We've learned a lot about virtual appearances since the outbreak of COVID. As for those who know us and have been tuning in for some time, you can see that we've reconfigured things. We've rearranged the way we do things here at the West Virginia Chamber to be able to reach more people virtually. And I'd have to say, we think it's working very, very well. And opportunities like this are very helpful to us because they help us know what's important to you. Well, with that, I'm not seeing another question. So with that, thank you very much. And we're kind of wrapping up. So everyone have a safe and happy weekend. A reminder that Monday is Martin Luther King Day. And we all live in appreciation for standing on the shoulders of giants. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.